Welcome on in, everybody. We are going to get started in about 3 minutes. Good to see so many people here. You can go ahead and open up the Zoom chat. Some people are introducing themselves, and we also have links to the things that are mentioned on the slide. Just smiling at all these responses from out of state. This is kind of the first time we've gotten to do this with our Lily conference. Very cool. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Claire Lapolte. I'm this year's Lilly Chair, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 7th annual and first virtual conference of lifelong information literacy. Lilly started as a group of California library workers from all different types of libraries, and our mission is to investigate models and standards of information literacy and to craft and share excellent models of information literacy and lifelong sequential learning. And we're very excited that this is kind of our first opportunity to have people from out of state, people from out of the country presenting and attending this conference. So look out for our conference evaluation survey later. You'll have a chance to let us know a little bit about what you're looking for in the Lilly listserv and help us shape this group as it grows and expands. I want to take a moment to acknowledge that we and our communities are going through a really difficult time this year. On the lighter side, my students had canceled graduations, BTS concerts, pride parades, anime expos, all canceled. And students and instructors have been struggling to find motivation and healthy balance in isolation. Further, there's a good chance that our communities are dealing with serious challenges like the loss of a loved one, uncertainty about employment, housing, childcare, immigration status, and all of these things make it very hard to learn. Library workers have been grappling with big questions about the future of many aspects of this field, and for many of us, we've been becoming remote instructors at a moment's notice in the middle of a pandemic. So we're not going to solve all of these problems today, but I wanted to make them all mentionable because this is what our communities are dealing with. And I'm especially grateful that we can meet because everything you can share, from fun little tips to big ideas, those are going to help us as library workers and as instructors to mitigate these situations for our communities going forward. And difficult times make me especially grateful for what I've always found to be the spirit of Lily, and that is collegiality and volunteerism and thoughtful, patient committee work. So I'm just very grateful that we can get together today in that spirit. I'd like to go over a couple logistics for our Zoom meeting today. The chat is, so there's a Zoom panel down at the bottom. You can access the chat through that panel. Those of us with FAC in our names and Lily backgrounds, we are here as facilitators for the day. So you can feel free to reach out to any of us if you need help. There is also a virtual help desk document, and our moderators can share that in the chat as well. That is a place you can go to get your questions answered in real time if any issues appear. I'd also ask that we all keep our volumes muted while we're in the main Zoom room if you're not presenting. You are in control over whether your Zoom video is on or off, and please feel free, be comfortable, tune in and out as you need to throughout the day, and eat when you need to, that kind of thing. We all know Zoom meetings can be kind of fatiguing. I'd like to give a reminder of our Lily Code of Conduct. We strive to support an atmosphere that is conducive to respectful exchange of ideas. So please be respectful. Also know that if you're having any issues with this, you can reach out to one of the moderators or go to our help desk document. Another detail was Zoom logistics. One second. Okay, yes. So that document is there. Also, this session is being recorded. That includes the chat. And so you are able to send private chats to participants. Just know that that does get included in the final transcript. So they're not actually private. Good detail to be aware of also in Zoom classes. I would like to introduce my vice chair and our incoming chair, Eva Rios Alvarado. And please welcome Eva. Oh, I forgot to say there are reactions you can do as well. Let's practice doing the clapping reaction on that Zoom panel. Thank you, welcome.
Thanks, Claire. If we can go to the next slide. My name is Eva Rios Alvarado. I'd like to welcome you, so bienvenida, expiali, to LilyCon 2020. My pronouns are she and hers. And so I'm so excited to be here with everybody, from folks who are here locally. I saw somebody, there was an MLIS student here from Los Angeles, to folks who are in different countries and around the country. This year's LilyCon was supposed to take place on my campus, Mount San Antonio College, here in the greater Los Angeles area. But of course, we have transitioned to this venue here to be with you. With that, we would like to do our land acknowledgement, territory acknowledgement to acknowledge the lands of where Mount San Antonio College is. But we also would like to ask you to acknowledge the indigenous lands where you reside. So a little bit about land territory acknowledgements. There are formal statements that recognize and respect the indigenous peoples and caretakers, stewards of a given geographic area. And the relationship that exists between the indigenous peoples, wherever you are located, and I am located, and their ancestral territories. For Mount San Antonio College, which is where my campus is, We would like to recognize that the land of that campus is situated on land that is Gabrielino Tongva. And according to the Gabrielino Tongva website, the Gabrielino Tongva lands extend from the areas of Malibu to Laguna Beach and all the way to the San Bernardino Mountains. We would also like to acknowledge that the Gabrielino Tongva have been indigenous to the LA Basin and the South Channel Islands for over 7,000 years. Thank you, Claire. I'm just gonna go to the next slide. We would also like to take a moment to acknowledge the work of our Black librarians and archivists who have made it possible even for BIPOC to participate in MLIS-LAS spaces. And so with that, we want to amplify a message by our comrade and somebody that I dearly respect, who's a community college librarian in Pennsylvania, Amanda M. Leftwich. She is the founder of Mindful and MLIS. And I would like to just take a moment and ask you to take a moment that we honor these words that she has shared on her Twitter and Instagram. Amanda states this: Black archivists matter, Black healers matter, Black librarians matter, Black library workers matter, Black minds matter, Black queer lives matter, Black lives matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Right, going to end screen share here. And right now, let me get those reactions out. Please join me in welcoming our first speaker, Ray Andrade.
I'm trying to share my screen, but it's telling me host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Oh, let's fix that really quick. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
It's okay. But in the meantime, while Claire works on that, like I really wanted to say a big thank you to Eva, to Claire, to the entire Lilly team for pivoting the Lilly conference to an online experience. Like, look at what you've all done. There's 150 people present right now. So again, hats off to you. Kudos to you for doing this. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ray, we just turned you into a co-host. Are you able to share?
Yes, I should be able to now. Looks like it. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Does everybody see that okay? Can I get a thumbs up from someone? Thank you. Thank you, Claire. All right. So good morning, everybody. So again, my name is Ray Andrade. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a librarian for student engagement at Loyola Marymount University, which is in Los Angeles. So for today, it's kind of funny that my presentation is about a presentation. So I'll explain that in the second slide. But for today, this presentation is called LMU Sue, Ditch the Bullet Points and Develop a Library Orientation Story. So to give you some background about this, LMU is a private university in LA. It has almost 10,000 students total between undergraduates and graduate students. Every year, the university welcomes approximately 1,500 students to campus. And at the beginning of every academic year, there's this colossal mess of an event called Welcome Weekend. So during Welcome Weekend, all of the brand new students, they're divided into different groups according to college, whether it's the College of Business, College of Science, etc. And everybody is taken to a different auditorium where they get to listen to different departments talk about those departments' services and resources. So the library is one of those departments that's invited to the party. So a couple of years back in 2018, the people who coordinate Welcome Weekend, the Division of Student Affairs, they really encouraged everybody to really shake things up, to make it interesting, make things engaging. So the library's response was to develop a story, and every story has to have its characters. So we developed a central character named LMU Sue. So we developed this character with one goal in mind, which was to reduce library anxiety. So this is the last ugly slide, I promise. So as far as the planning phase goes, the library was invited to present, but right off the bat, I insisted that we share the stage with the university's Academic Resource Center, because my belief on this is that if the library is going to be serious about academic success for students, then it has to partner with the Academic Resource Center, which is not inside the library. The Academic Resource Center is far away, like on the opposite end of campus. And the Academic Resource Center, it features, for example, the writing center, writing tutors, academic subject tutors, etc. So our services are very complementary. So we invited the Academic Resource Center to co-present with us. So the presentation that you're going to see in a moment, I'm going to be showing excerpts in a second, but just imagine, if you will, you're a first-year student, you're in the audience amongst like 300 other students from your college, and you have two presenters on stage, one from the library and one from the Academic Resource Center. So before Welcome Weekend, the staff from the Academic Resource Center and the two librarians from the Library Outreach Department, myself and a gentleman named John Jackson, we met about 3 or 4 times over the summer to develop the character. Like we worked on character development. We did a lot of storyboarding, and in the end, we developed a specific script, like a script that we were actually able to print out, so that not only can John and I read off the script, but that also some of our students who supervise could jump in as co-presenters and read from the script as well. Because trust me, even though staff were on stage reading off of a script, given the nature of the presentation, all eyes were on the screen, all eyes were on LMU Sue. You'll see that in a second. So after we had a script ready, we were able to schedule a professional photographer to come to campus, and it definitely paid off. So hopefully you'll think that the pictures are cute and adorable and funny. So we had to plan the shots that we wanted to stage anywhere from inside the library all the way to inside LMU Sue's dorm. So I already mentioned that we also incorporated students into the planning process. So I supervise approximately 10 library ambassadors, and I use them as consultants to make sure that the story basically does speak to an 18-year-old, somebody who's fresh out of high school. So I use them as consultants, and again, I use them as co-presenters. And the last missing piece that was really, really instrumental to the success of this presentation was the orientation leaders. So these orientation leaders, they don't work for the library. They work for the Division of Student Affairs. This is a team of about 40 to 50 students who are either sophomores or juniors or seniors, who are basically cheerleaders. They give campus tours to the new students, and they offer advice. And they were really instrumental, because before Welcome Weekend happened, before showtime took place, we were able to do like a preview presentation, kind of like an advanced screening with the orientation leaders. And it kind of feels like a film director observing an audience reacting to their film. It's kind of like that. So we were able to see like what kind of reactions we solicited from the orientation leaders. And at the end, we were able to collect feedback. And sure enough, we did incorporate a lot of recommendations to the LMU Sue storyline, as you're going to see in a moment. In fact, there's a moment when the story makes a reference to Bachelor in Paradise. I'm not savvy, but apparently back in 2018, this was a reality TV show that was popular with a lot of folks. So anyway, again, the orientation leaders were instrumental in that regard. And they were also instrumental as far as preparing them for roles. So we gave them a role to play, basically to plant themselves in the audience and to really help with the emotional reactions that we wanted to elicit from the audience. So there's going to be parts of the story where LMU Sue is sad. Aww. There's parts of the story where LMU Sue is triumphant and happy, and there's yay, and there's clapping and all of that. So the orientation leaders, being the cheerleaders that they were very instrumental for doing that. So, second here. So obviously I'm not gonna read it directly from the script. So in the next, 10 slides or so, there's going to be some sections where I am going to read directly from the script, and I'll try to make that as obvious as possible. And in the interest of time, there's going to be some slides where I'm just going to describe what's happening. Okay. So This is the very first slide that people see. So after we're introduced by the Department of Student Affairs, we say something like, "Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Ray Andrade. I'm one of LMU's friendly and helpful librarians." And then the ARC staff member will say, "Hi, my name is Dr. Morgan Gross. I'm the Writing Center Director, and we're here to welcome everybody to LMU. And this is LMU Sue." So we take a moment to talk about who LMU Sue is. We say LMU Sue is a first-generation college student. She's from Colorado, so she's an out-of-state student. She's kind of shy, kind of introverted. She loves to FaceTime with her family, and she loves to hang out with her best friend and roommate, Lisa. And Lisa and Sue both learn about how helpful and friendly the librarians are during orientations. So side note, the phrase friendly and helpful librarian, I lost count of how many times this is said, because we really wanted to drill this during the presentation, because again, we want to reduce library anxiety. So after that, the script kind of gets into how it's week number one. It's week number one, and LMU Sue has her syllabus. And according to her syllabus, she's supposed to find some books at the library that are on reserves. So she finds one of her books, and while she's at the library, she's also wondering if the library has any of the other books that her professor is requiring her to purchase. Some of these books are also expensive, so hopefully she's able to locate the books in the library. So the student at the circulation desk recommends that she talk to a librarian at the reference desk to see if the library could help her locate the rest of her books. So then LMU Sue discovers the reference desk. And I'm not going to go verbatim, but this is where she engages with the librarian at the information desk, and the librarian helps her locate one of her books as a free ebook at the library. And she's also able to locate a physical copy of one of her other books from a nearby library. So she learns what interlibrary loan is and how this is a free service. So thanks to that, LMU Sue was able to save a lot of money. And LMU Sue is happy, and there's clapping. Again, the O leaders are planted in the audience. They're very happy for LMU Sue. And then it's week number two. LMU Sue finally has all of her books, and now she's gonna get ready to study. On one evening, she goes back to her dorm, but she finds out that her roommate Lisa suddenly planned a watch party to watch Bachelor in Paradise. So now suddenly she has no place to study. But she remembers that the friendly, helpful librarian at orientation said that the library has plenty of study spaces at the library. But wait a minute, it's almost 10 p.m. Is the library open late? It turns out that yes, it is. In fact, she remembers that the friendly, helpful librarian said that the library is actually open 24 hours a day, 5 days a week between Monday and Friday. So once again, LMU Sue is happy. And there's a lot of cheering. So you kind of get the idea for what the tone of the presentation is. So in the interest of time, I'm going to keep this moving along. So during this presentation, there's also a moment when, to shake things up once again, there's a break. There's a 1 minute break when the library presents a 1 minute video. It's basically a welcome video that features library staff saying welcome. So if it's okay, I know that Ding, one of the Lily facilitators, is going to help me with this. So I would love it if everybody who's present could also take a look at this video as well. The video is 1 minute long, but we'll give everybody approximately 2 minutes to watch it on a separate browser. I'm not gonna hit play. So Ding, do you want to facilitate that?
Yes, I'm sending on the links now.
Thank you. I think we're going to put the link in the chat for everybody to go ahead.
Apologies, I'm still finding the links. It's setting up soon.
I see that Aisha added a link to the chat as well. Thank you.
Good looking out, Aisha. Thank you.
Yes. Great. So Ray, we're watching the video now. Yeah. Some people did already.
Okay. Do you think that was enough time for people to watch it? Okay, I know that Claire has her mic muted, but I'm gonna guess that was enough time for folks to watch that minute video. You think I
Yeah,
can
I
go
think
long?
so. Thank
Okay,
you.
cool. All right, so I hope you all enjoyed that. So again, that's in the interest of alleviating library anxiety. So I'm gonna move a little bit faster. So now the story comes back to, and I'm gonna paraphrase, I'm not gonna read any more of the script. But here at this point of the story, Claire is back in her dorm. She's working on a research paper. Suddenly she realizes she needs a librarian. She remembers that the librarian at orientation mentioned that the library has live chat available 24/7. So she fires up her laptop, goes to the library homepage, uses live chat. The librarian on live chat helps her locate a scholarly article, no problem. So she's happy once again. So then comes the part for the ARC. So she's having writing struggles. She's having trouble focusing. So in this part of the story, the presenters say like, oh yeah, we forgot to mention something about Sue. She's in a long-term relationship. She's struggling because she misses her partner back in Colorado. So Lisa, her roommate, notices that Sue is sad. So Lisa declares, okay, forget this. We're gonna have a watch party. So, but then they realize like, uh-oh, we don't have Netflix accounts. So library to the rescue. No Netflix, no problem. The library has thousands. Thank you. The library has lots of streaming videos. So again, they're both happy at that point. And she's working on a history project. She discovers special collections. She discovers that the special collections department actually has actual Civil War items to help her with her research. So there's an intermission. And this is a moment when we tell people about our upcoming events. We ask the freshman students to follow us on social media. She discovers consultations with the librarian, meeting one-on-one for further research assistance. Midterm shock, she finds out that she gets a midterm deficiency in one of her philosophy classes. So again, at this point, she got a bad grade because she couldn't focus because she ends up breaking up. She ends up breaking up with her partner. So yes, this elicits a very sad response from the audience. But she vows to redeem herself. So she begins to use the Academic Resource Center like there's no tomorrow. So she discovers that the Academic Resource Center has advising. So here she is meeting with an advisor, and I'm about to wrap up now. So it's finally the end of finals week, and thanks to using the Academic Resource Center and the library, she discovers that she actually did a lot better than she expected during finals exams. So there was a lot of stress that was relieved at that point. But even on top of that, she discovered that during finals week, the library actually has therapy animals. So here's a yoga goat, in case anybody has never heard of yoga goats before. That thing was heavy, it was about 40 pounds. Thank you very much. So this is where we wrap up the presentation with the students. So here we say something like, so given all of the support that LMU Sue discovered at the Academic Resource Center and with the helpful and friendly librarians, LMU Sue is confident that the next 4 years at LMU are gonna be easy thanks to the library and thanks to the ARC. So in the end, Sue is happy and successful. And that, my friends, is the end of our story. So that's the end of the story for the students. And I don't know if there's enough time. Thank you. I don't know if there's enough time. There's a 12-second video. There's a 12-second video that's posted on Instagram. This video was not at all, I did not plan on recording this video. That's why it's only 12 seconds. But this video is footage of the reaction from students in the audience. So I'm never gonna forget this particular audience. These were the students from the School of Film, the College of Film and Television. So if folks could take 30 seconds to look at that video, and then I'll leave it to questions.
Wow, look at the hype in that video. That's some great reactions, Ray. We do have a couple minutes if you would like to take, if the moderators would like to give you any questions from the audience.
Sure.
Just maybe one or two.
The first question we got is from Megan Bell. She's asking, how much time did you have to present this information to students?
Thank you for bringing that up. 20 minutes. So in total, we had up to 20 minutes, but in reality, this presentation only took about 12 minutes. And thankfully so, because that allowed us a lot of time for Q&A at the end of those sessions. So the presentation would generate some questions from the freshmen, but just in case there were ever any crickets, like if there was like dead silence, the orientation leaders, again, they were very instrumental because they were planted in the audience. Like they would be like, hey, can you clarify again, how did LMU Sue use interlibrary loan? Is that a free service or not? So the orientation leaders helped us with that. But yeah, in total, we had up to 20 minutes to present this.
Thank you, Ray. Our next question is from Kirsten Hansen. How did you recruit your model?
So she works for the Academic Resource Center. And the staff at the Academic Resource Center, like right away, they identified her. They were like, we know exactly who would be perfect. This student is very bubbly. She would definitely go all out. There's even some pictures, we didn't see them today. There's even some pictures where like she does eye drops. She does eye drops to pretend that she's crying because she just broke up with her partner. So this student was great. So that's how we recruited her. She was a staff member at the Academic Resource Center.
Awesome. Another question is from Zoe Falava. How often do you show this throughout the semester?
Once. So this presentation only happens once at the very beginning of the academic year. But one thing that beyond this presentation, the Academic Resource Center and the library, we also partner for something called tabling. So for those of you who may not know what tabling is, that's like when a student organization or student club or a campus department like the library, we will request for the campus to set up tables at various locations on campus. And we offer giveaway items like free highlighters, free pens, free pencils, free cell phone wallets. So in conjunction with that presentation, we do the tabling thing to remind folks of everything they should have learned during the presentation. And one thing I love is how when we do tabling, about one month into the semester, we'll do the tabling just to sustain the messaging from the library. And it never fails. There's always like, hey, friendly and helpful librarian, I remember you. There's always a lot of that. So that's a good question to bring up.
Thank you. Claire, do you have another question? Time for another question?
I think we have, yeah, I think we're going to wrap now, but we will make your contact information available with the conference session. So feel free to follow up with Ray on their friendly and helpful librarians. I love that you were hearing that epithet afterwards. Let's give Ray a round of applause. Yay. And so just another norm for this conference, we're going to take just maybe 5 minutes in between. We've portioned it out so that there's a couple of minutes in between speakers. That way, if you need to get up and grab some water, go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do. So our next speaker will begin in about 3 minutes at 10:35. And Dr. Farmer, in a couple of minutes, I'll go ahead and introduce you and then we can start. Just taking a little breathing room between each session. So just like in that last session, our moderators will be pulling questions from the chat. So if a question occurs to you, feel free to type it in at any time. That way we can get to it during Q&A if possible. All right, our next speaker talks about getting students involved in the teaching and learning process, which I think is really exciting. Please welcome Dr. Leslie Farmer.
Welcome everyone. Really glad to have you here, at least virtually, and Ray's presentation fits right into what I'll be sharing today, and that is, the importance of student engagement. I also wanted to let folks know, there we go, that I'm speaking right outside of California State University, Long Beach, and that lies on the ground of Puuwanga, and that's an ancient village and sacred site of the Tongva Nation, and they are the indigenous people of this area. And in fact, we have a committee on our campus that makes sure to recognize, respect, and maintain that area, and we have one section of land that is specifically not to be touched. So just wanted to give that grounding. But for our few minutes together, we're going to be talking about peer teaching, teaching adults, and some teaching strategies. But I do have to say that most of this information really applies to almost any kind of library setting from preteens on up. So why have that kind of peer teaching or teaching by students? That certainly does engage them. There's a certain interdependence and also a sense of responsibility that's built up on that, as well as accountability. And the fact that they have an authentic audience, it's not just the teacher, makes it higher stakes, but also lends more credibility to it. And of course, in terms of the instructional side, it's a really good way for checking of understanding. We know that if we have to teach something, we have to really make sure that we know it well, as in addition to that. Also, for those of you that are instructors, it kind of means that you're not the only person who's doing the teaching, so it kind of spreads the load. And it also then models the idea of a community of practice. And these are all points of, community of practice, so that we are sharing practice. It helps, folks that are more expert to help folks that are beginning, and also recognizes that all folks have expertise. So it's not just, so that quote newbies can lend in certain experience and insights that folks who've been around longer would also appreciate. So in fact, when you're talking about, instruction, students really can be engaged throughout the process, all the way from stating what their needs, are and where they are in terms of their expertise, helping to determine what the content is and what possible resources would be, useful. They can also provide their own kinds of learning objects to add to the repository of information, as well as being able to demonstrate, to instruct others, and to participate in assessment. But understand that for each role that students are taking, that you do need to train that. So a very simple thing to do is to do what we call a fishbowl, where someone can model it and other people then can critique how that's going on, or the teacher themselves can say, so I want you to kind of think about what are some of the practices that I am using that you yourself will need to do. You can also have them practice in small groups and get kind of a critical, friend feedback. Again, particularly, for adults, but I think that this is kind of getting down to almost all ages now. And that is the idea that folks are, self-directed, that they bring experience, that it's really important that, that you draw upon their motivation. They want stuff that's practical, and also that we need to have both a cognitive presence as well as a social, presence. So what I want to just share with you is different levels of teaching. So sort of like the easy to do, quick starters, and then building up. So pair share is basically, you might be presenting a particular concept, and or even just asking them, a beginning question, like, so what was your first experience in the library? And just being able to have, discussions with, between two people. And that way everybody gets to have a voice. It's low stakes, but it helps them to kind of ground themselves. You're seeing in this slide, picture of folks that are sharing a screen. And that's a good way to kind of, again, kind of share, their responses and inform each other. Especially, we were asking earlier, for instance, in this session, like, where do I add things in Padlet? And another person was able to state it. So it's a very nice, easy way to kind of teach each other. When students are creating papers, or even something like, try and find an article on X subject, to have then the peer reviews is like, wow, those were really good keywords, or you might try adding a different, database. So that's kind of a nice way to do that. If it's has to do with papers, if you have a rubric, then they can use that rubric to share. Wonderful for at the draft stage of doing assignments or projects. Having a study buddy is another way that you can do that, sharing notes, etc., as well as having, paired projects. When we talk about small groups, probably the default are discussion, boards. So again, you might have an interesting open-ended question, a controversial one, and then, those groups in the small groups can, discuss pros and cons, different points of view. Works great for Zoom breakout rooms because let's face it, we need to do a lot of this stuff online these days. Jigsaw knowledge basically means that you would take a a corpus, or maybe it'd be a chapter, break it down into small bits, and then each person just concentrates on that one piece, and then everybody gathers and reports out. Another way that you can do that is having each, and you'll do this for instance like a web quest, which is an online kind of a closed universe interesting question, and that is each person takes a particular role. So it could be a student, a teacher, politician, a parent, and they research a particular part, and then they'll come together. Or if there's different topics, then say that you've got 4 articles and each one's reading it from a different point of view, then all the people who have the heading of a parent, they would get together and they would then compare the different articles in terms of a parent's perspective. So that's kind of a jigsaw thing. Or you can do group quizzes, which is really nifty for checking for understanding. So it's sort of like teams on College Bowl, etc., where the group as a whole has to answer the question. So it's a little less stress for people, and there's some kind of peer teaching along with that, as well as just collaborative projects. So whatever the product is that several people are working on it together, each one takes a particular role or section, and then together they're able to do that. This is particularly useful for creating videos. And then there's teaching for a whole class. So again, if students bring different kinds of expertise to a group setting, then they can say, this is where I'm really good. This is very useful in terms of technology. So maybe someone's really good at Flipgrid, another one's Zoom, another one Cocoon, another one Padlet, etc. So it's like, so if you have a question about this particular application, the go-to person is Sue, right? That's where, again, the idea of having tech content tips is good. So another way to do that is then each student who is an expert, they would then create kind of like a little study guide or FAQ for that particular technology. And the same thing can happen for a particular subject as well. It's great to have students leading class discussions. That can be done as an individual or as a group. And if it's a group, then they usually do some pre-planning in order to determine, who is going to take which role. But again, for something like a class discussion, probably just a really good, interesting, controversial question, and or moderating, like brainstorming, that kind of a thing. And again, they bring their own expertise, to the table. On that, they're able to ask good follow-up questions that they've already prepared, as well as being able to fill in the gaps. So that's kind of a low stakes one. It's not as heavy as a formal presentation. Students can also do screencasting and podcasting. So they would, set that up, and then that would be available, to kind of the whole class. Screencasting is particularly good for, especially for libraries, I'm saying, how to use a particular database. That's the most, obvious, piece. And podcasting is really good, kind of what we call learning moment. So it could be like, so, you're trying to find material and it isn't in the library. What am I going to do? I'll try interlibrary loan. So the idea that the student is creating the podcast and not just the librarian probably wants to review it to make sure it's accurate, then provide students a voice. And it's kind of that peer thing, so that sometimes makes it more appealing. So that's and it also means it lowers the workload for the librarian as well. And I also mentioned already about presentations on content. Again, videos, Flipgrid, are all good ways, to do that. You can even do that, again, in the public library in terms of, say, like a Flipgrid for book talks. So add that, to your list, because let's face it, as librarians, we are all of us educators in different ways, and we're finding, in fact, that informal education is so important because it continues throughout our whole lives. So just a couple of tips, if we're talking about helping students to lead discussions. So I have this page of just different ideas that are coming from best practice. So again, being prepared, having an agenda, starting out with a provocative statement, making sure that that you do have checks for understanding, calling on people who might be kind of quiet, make sure that you're understood and communicate. So having a way to do that, if in an online situation, that might be through chat or give that hands up. And then always be remembering to evaluate after. So this is for all folks in all kinds of situations where students aren't doing teaching. It's like, so how did it go? How did it feel for you? What was the response? Did that make a difference? Did students being able to be successful, to find an article or to be able to do correct, citation style, etc. So the more that we can help facilitate that part of teaching, that's really important. And then also in terms of discussion starters, and this can, again, can even start with the librarian and then get folks, started with good ideas that they may turn around and then teach others. So, short readings, doing some role play, using, visual, starters to kind of get folks, interested. Starting with students' own experience, which is also a great way to do a diagnostic assessment. Finding what the whole group thinks, having polls, little questionnaires, case studies. Those are all ways to kind of instigate motivation and engagement. And these are all pieces that can be used by the students as well in terms of, teaching others, getting others engaged. Another thing that is really useful, I talked about screencasts, about podcasts. In effect, those are student-generated products. And I really wanted to push, on that, because as you're teaching, you may create a study guide or again, a short video to summarize or to introduce a topic. So the teaching isn't just the delivery, but it's also the products that go along, with that. And I wanted to just, really emphasize the idea of open educational resources to that end.
5 minutes remaining.
And basically, we're talking about resources that can be accessed freely and openly for folks to reuse, revise, redistribute, and retain. And it adds to the professional field. Again, I talked about assessment. So how engaged are people? What do peers, think? Does that help them to achieve their learning goal? How does that impact your instruction? How does it impact any kinds of courses? And how does that impact the field? And I have a little cartoon. It says, like, I taught Stripe how to whistle. And it says, like, I don't hear him whistling. It says, I said I taught him. I didn't say he learned it. So again, it's not just the teaching, is what's the impact, on the learner. So with that, teachers are learning along with the students. So I hope that you are open for sharing that control, because it ends up that everybody benefits. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Farmer. We have time for a couple Q&A if anyone would like to put questions in the chat.
And let me go to my first slide. That you can see my email.
Thank you. Yeah, we're seeing feedback that there's a lot of good ideas to apply to take away from this. I think we're just kind of chewing on it.
Oh, I have one
Great.
question. So Kayla is asking, what activity do the students respond to most?
I think that probably discussion boards work really well. That seems to be most effective if it's like a class, so not just the one-shot thing, although it can work if you are doing a one-shot with a class that's already well established and where the teacher already has small groups that are put together, because folks really do like to share information. So like breakout rooms, it's a low-key, low-stakes way to do that. They also appreciate, again, this works particularly well, in a classroom set, or maybe you've got student workers, and that is to do a screencast, because they feel really proud of their work, and if it's posted for others folks to see, it's a real sense of accomplishment.
Thank you. We have Elizabeth Nelson's question. Do you ever use students in planning a session's content, or are you mostly bringing them in during the class itself?
Okay, can you say that more loudly, because I can't hear.
Elizabeth is asking, do you ever use students in planning a session's content, or are you mostly just bringing them in during the class itself?
Right, okay. What I think is, probably two things. One is at the end of a course, always debrief students and say, so what would you add to the course? What would you change? And also I would include, their works upon, permission, and add that to the next, class. Sometimes I do that in the middle of a term to say like, so, what do we need to add here? I'll also do it in terms of diagnostics at the beginning. So that if I already know they already know X, Y, and Z, but they don't know much about, Y, then we'll add that. Or if there's several students that need clarification or they want to learn more about something, then, I'll add that. And I always encourage students, if they find something really good, share that, have a special repository for that, and let others know about that so they can delve into it.
Thank you. And we can answer one last question from Esther, which is about sharing students' work. So do they need to agree to make their work public,
Yes.
or do they have an option now to agree?
Yeah, no, there's two ways that you can do that. You can ask students, again, this is in a course, that they kind of like sign off at the beginning, but what I really, if it's especially for another, class, because our classes are, like self-contained, so it's nothing's, public. But I always try and ask the students permission. They're usually, I said, like, you did really great work. I'd love to use this example or another course. I'll wipe out your name if you so desire. And I've had 100% agreement, for that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dr. Farmer. That's the time for questions that we have, but she has shared her contact info, so feel free to follow up by email. We'll have a couple minutes stretch break before moving into our lightning talks, which are 10 minutes only.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Also, attendees, I forgot to mention that we have a conference hashtag for today. If you're on Twitter, you can go ahead and tweet at hashtag LilyConf2020, and that way we can see the ideas that we're generating. All right, couple minutes. Our next presenter will begin in 3 minutes. All right. Our next presenter wins the award for longest distance technically traveled to come here to this virtual event from the American University in Cairo. I'm really excited to welcome Maurice Hines.
Hello, Claire, and hello, everybody. Thank you for holding this conference. I'm currently in Cairo right now. It's kind of late, but I'm happy to be here. I just want to start slideshow. Okay. So yes, I'm Maurice Hines. I'm a reference and instruction librarian at the American University in Cairo. And I teach an information literacy class mostly to freshmen and sophomores. I came up with this idea of doing a research diary as a form of assessment for our class. So I just wanted to share my ideas with you really quickly. And so first, I wanted to discuss what is a research diary. I guess simply put, a research diary is a tool that researchers use in order to record and reflect on their findings throughout the research. And I think it lends itself well to the digital environment. I mean, you can use a lot of different formats, different media. You can use Google Docs. You can use a YouTube channel, audio recordings, however you want to do it. And I just wanted to share a story. You know, I just recently moved to a new apartment, and in the move, I rediscovered an old research diary that I had from maybe 15 years ago when I studied abroad in Morocco. And I know that I've long since misplaced the actual paper, and I really don't have any interest in reading the actual paper that I wrote. But in rereading my research diary, I felt it was really interesting. There were a lot of details and extra things that I put in there that I thought were also interesting and probably a little bit more lively than the actual research paper. And then I think most importantly, I had a chance to sort of see my process throughout. It lends itself well to an assessment tool. So there are a few challenges that me and my colleagues face in teaching information literacy at the university in Cairo. So first, we wanted to increase the relevance of our course. Our course is tied to a research writing course, but sometimes the students don't always understand the relevance of it. They see it as repetitive sometimes. And then also students, we often don't see how students apply the content that we teach in this information literacy course outside of our course. So I remember one time a student came up to the reference desk to print her final paper, and I happened to notice that all her citations were wrong. And so I asked her if she took my course, the information literacy course, and she said, yeah, I took it with you. So I thought that was a little bit disheartening to see that students aren't really applying what they learned in our course. And then furthermore, just increasing this cohesiveness between the concepts. Sometimes the way that we teach is just a lot of different concepts that might not be related to each other. And then finally, we have some problems having to do with cheating, plagiarism, breaches of academic integrity. And usually this happens when students they just don't know what to do or how to do it. And we also have a few secondary problems. First, our course is 0 credit. Most of the students are English as second language. There's some cultural differences, and oftentimes they've never had any experience doing any sort of academic analysis. We can come back to that later. So I just wanted to just share, there are 2 methods that I use over this. The first one I used in the spring semester when everything kind of happened. And this was an independent creative project. And this was a summative assessment. So students had the option of either doing this project, this creative project, or taking a multiple choice final exam. Of course, most of the students, they chose to do the multiple choice. However, there were a few students that did this research project, this creative project, and I just asked that they include these 5 elements, research project description. So they chose a research project from another class, and they wrote down the description, the research plan, research questions and answers, and then at least 10 entries in a journal that they kept over the semester, and then a reference list. And I can talk about the pros and cons if you all wanted to talk about that later. So this is an example of students' work. And I kept some statistics on it, and had some student comments. The second method is what I used over this past semester, this past summer semester. And I did it a little bit differently. It was a guided collective project. So me, the instructor, I chose to do a blog, and I would choose different scenarios and maybe some information literacy concepts, and use them as prompts for students to reflect on, maybe a little bit of enrichment activities. And this was not a final or a summative assessment, more of a formative assessment. So this is what the blog looked like. And I kept some statistics. There's some student comments, but I just wanted to get to my final concluding remarks before we run out of time. So, so I think both projects are best done in smaller groups, because they do require that there's a periodic follow-up with students. And also, I don't have this luxury. I average around 200 students a semester, and I teach a lot of different sections. But I know that this might not be an issue for everybody. Maybe grading and follow-up isn't an issue for everybody. While the second method, the blog that I did, kind of gave me more control, I still see the first method, the creative project, as an ideal, because it allows students to independently organize and reflect on their research. They can choose whichever medium they feel is comfortable for them to use, easy for them to use. And it's also some transferable skills that they'll use later on in life and research. And then finally, I just wanted to say maybe there could be a healthy compromise between these 2 methods. Maybe, create a research diary template or workbook or interactive website or something like that guides students in the process of reflecting on their research. Maybe some of you know of things that are out there already, or you'll be interested in creating that. And maybe we can talk about that later on. So this is my presentation. Thank you. And I'm looking forward for any questions, comments that you might have.
Thank you, Maurice. Ding, I think we have time for one question if you want to pull one from the chat.
Sure. So Ashley's asking if this was done only in the LIS class, how would you envision this in a one-shot, or is it not easily transferable? So class versus one-shot session.
Okay, so we haven't tried it as a one shot. We teach classes. We actually teach whole classes, and we're trying to figure out better ways of assessing the students. I will have to think about how to envision it as a one shot, or maybe a series of one shots. Maybe I'm not sure.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us from Cairo, and good evening over there.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Very creative methods, yeah. All right, everyone, we'll have a couple minutes, and then our next presenter will start at 11:15.
Hey Claire, I'm hoping you can hear me and see my slides. Is that right?
Yes, Rachel, they look good. Hold off for just a few minutes and I'll introduce you and we'll get started then.
Okay.
Thanks. Just a reminder, our conference hashtag today is hashtag LilyConf 2020. So if you're on Twitter, you can go ahead and share your ideas there. I'm going to put it in the chat as well. Our next lightning talk presenter is Rachel Olson. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope you can hear and see me. It's going to look like I'm looking up, but anyway, tech setup. So I am Rachel Olson from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. And I just dropped the link to my slides. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I am the first year communication and social sciences librarian at UNCG. And there's my email. Again, link to these slides. So I'm going to talk to you about using Goose Chase to make library visits more engaging. So first I will explain what Goose Chase is, but first I want to just explain kind of my thinking and development around this. So think about library tours when people come to our building. How do we make those kind of the best we can for visitors? So a couple things that I always try to consider: what's the best possible format that I could use for this particular visit? So a lot of times people are just looking for a traditional walking tour with a guide, and that's fine. We had a librarian who just retired. He'd been at the university for 40 plus years, and he loved to do walking tours, and he had, you know, all kinds of cool stories and strategies. I'm more into sort of a little bit more of a hands-on model. So scavenger hunts were something that I was always interested in. And these started out pretty low tech, just sort of having them, you know, find things and write down answers on a sheet of paper. I'm also very briefly at the end of this going to talk about breakout rooms. And I know that there's a presentation later on breakout EDU, so I'll be interested to hear about that. I've had different levels of success and engagement from participants with all of these types of tour formats. And I really would encourage you to customize each one based on the age of your participants, their academic level, you know, thinking about a couple of those things. Actually, some questions you can ask yourself. So who's your audience? We get all kinds of visitor groups, from middle college students to high school students to first year students to parents sometimes. So thinking about your audience, what does their average level of experience with the library? If you have a general idea, that can be helpful. What's the purpose of the visit? So whoever contacted you about setting it up, you may want to get as much information as you can about what they're hoping to get out of it for their group. And then who are your partners in this visit? So at my library, we're really fortunate to have a very active and hands-on special collections and university archives department. And I work in the research department, so we partner with them a lot to really incorporate some of the cool materials they have. They actually help us host. We start the program in their room, in their sort of classroom space, and they like to set out materials and things for people to look at. So having partners, people who are interested, is really important. We also have a great student success librarian who has started within the last year at UNCG, and she's been a great help. So Goose Chase. Goose Chase is an app. It is free. It's for digital scavenger hunts. And I don't know if anyone has ever used this before or heard of this, but I really love it. I've used it for a few years now. Basically what you do, you go in and set up this digital scavenger hunt, and you have what are called missions. So there are 3 types of missions. You can have GPS, photo, or text missions. You can see right here, I mostly do photo missions because there's something that people can just kind of walk around quickly, take a picture of something, prove that they were there, and then move on. But it is helpful. For instance, I did a question about how many days are you allowed to keep books if you're an undergraduate student. And the GPS mission sort of aspect of it is helpful, I think, particularly in the time of COVID, which we'll talk about a little bit. You can actually have people maybe go to different places within the community. It doesn't work as well within one building. Like if you're in within Jackson Library is the name of our building, it doesn't work as well because it wants you to have kind of a bigger area that you're working with. But it is possible to use it effectively. And you can set the point values for this. You can also set the start and stop. So while I use this mostly for synchronous in-person tours, so I'll set it to start like at 11 o'clock and then finish at 11:45 or something like that. You can also, like I've done here, set it to start on one day and end on a different day. And I think you can go pretty far out in terms of the timings. So you could potentially make it, I know when I taught an FYE class at a different school, you can set it to go across several months or several weeks and give people time to complete missions. So lots of possibilities for this. These are just some examples of kind of missions that students have completed while within the library. These are some of our middle college students. And I think they really get into it. They're excited that they don't have to sort of just follow someone around, sort of a sit and get kind of model. They're really interested to kind of do the exploring themselves. And I will say that it's important that you set kind of some ground rules before they go. Like, we encourage them, don't run, you know, use an appropriate inside voice, things like that. We also have some students that have accidentally wandered into office areas in the library. So we started putting up, just like outside our tech services department, we have signs that say, you know, this wasn't part of the scavenger hunt, you know, turn around, go the other way, things like that. But they really do get into it. This is what the control board looks like from your perspective. So I'm named, you can do up to 5 teams at a time with the free version. I named them after campus icons or important people on campus, like Gilliam is the name of our chancellor. You can send a message to teams.
5 minutes remaining.
Thank you. So you can send a message to teams. You could send it to everyone when there's a few minutes left, or if there's one particular team that you think has taken a wrong turn or something like that, you could send them a message. Adjusting scores, it's easy to see who's in the lead. All those nice features. I've used this with Chance, which is a summer camp we have for Hispanic and Latinx students, middle college, FYE, in different settings. And then I've even used it at a different institution with parents. And that was really kind of a cool experience. They really get into it. So some pros and cons of Goose Chase. Good things about Goose Chase, it is free. It is free. The asterisk is just to say there's some workarounds that you need to do if you want to really use it effectively with the free version. And I'm happy, I don't have time here, I'm more than happy for people to contact me and think about how to use some of those. The workarounds are completely legit, above water. It's just sort of something you have to get used to. It's easy to duplicate your games, and you have the nice control center like I showed you. It's also very easy to evaluate and assess things. It's all on one platform. Not as great things about Goose Chase. Again, the free version requires some workarounds. Not a bad thing, just something that it's a learning curve. It's also a learning curve for folks who might not be as tech savvy, but that's something that, you know, I fortunately have a lot of training in teaching people how to use technology. So, you know, it's not something you can't overcome. And then user behavior, you do have to make sure that people aren't posting inappropriate pictures as their answers or something like that. But luckily the platform has methods that you can use to message and remove answers that maybe don't belong. Major tip for success, number 1 tip for success, when you're using this with an in-person class, give them iPads with the app pre-downloaded and a free account already made and have it logged in, ready to go. We used to ask students to download it on their own phones and create their own accounts, which is free again, but it takes time. And there's always someone who doesn't have a connection or doesn't have enough data or doesn't want to do it. So just give each team an iPad and send them on their way. We just checked out iPads from the circulation desk. We actually have some now that are dedicated for Goose Chases. So Goose Chase and COVID, I know the big question is how are we going to adapt this for online asynchronous learning? And it is completely possible. So use timings and deadlines for missions using the calendar. Digital missions are 100% doable. It's something that you could have them do, like a virtual scavenger hunt using your library's website. You could also, depending on what your community looks like, what your campus looks like, if you know that you're working with a group of students who is on campus, at some point in the semester, you could have them go around and still look at things and do things. And the nice thing about it is that there are ways to do workarounds so that individuals can just kind of work. You don't have to do it in teams. So it's absolutely possible. And then the last thing, I know my time is almost up, I do want to mention digital escape rooms as a fantastic option for sort of asynchronous kind of introductions to the library. This is an example of one that my colleagues created. It's just the first page of one they created for our orientation this year. And I think students really got into it. It wasn't required, and we had more than like 200, 300 responses, which is really great. So much credit to my colleagues for that approach. Questions? Here's my email. Again, I am happy for you to contact me. Someone's asking if I have a link to the digital escape room. Email me and I will give it to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Rachel, for that presentation focused on such a useful tool. I've been looking through the chat. It sounds like a lot of us can't wait to try this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, for answering many questions already in your presentation. We do have 2 remaining questions. One is from Veronica.
Oh, Ding, I think we'll just follow up with those afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you. Great. We will have another quick stretch break, and in 5 minutes, I'll welcome our next presenters. I'm gonna go get some water. Right, I'm getting ready to welcome our next presenters. They are Elizabeth Nelson and Brett Spencer. Hi, welcome.
So thank you. I'm gonna start us off and then Brett will take over in a minute. So we'll go ahead and jump in. Hello everyone, and thank you for your time today. My name is Elizabeth Nelson from Penn State Lehigh Valley, and I'm here with my research partner, Brett Spencer from Penn State Berks, to give you a very quick introduction to how we created a board game to introduce the research process. We're kind of going to fly through this presentation, but we would be thrilled to provide more detail and discuss our project with anyone who's interested. So please feel free to reach out to us if you'd like to learn more. And I should check because I didn't do it already. Can everybody see my screen okay? Okay.
Yes.
So please check the chat for the URL to our presentation materials. There's a digital handout of options for online game creation and an open licensed version of our game that you can download and use. That link is also here on our first slide and will be repeated at the end of the presentation too. So the board game that we created, Argument Architect, is designed to help students explore the research process at a fundamental level, from choosing and learning more about a topic to evaluating sources for what they could add to a discussion of that topic, to finally constructing a well-supported argument from those sources. Our primary version of the game is a physical board game designed to be flexible to a variety of physical classroom environments and scalable to different skill levels and research interests. But no matter how fun it is, a high-touch physical game really doesn't do well with COVID restrictions. So we've spent time this summer working on a digital version that's going to be ready for our fall 2020 classes. The game allows students to have a sandbox-style experience that introduces practical research skills in a concrete way, but without consequences or fear of grades or assessment. Typically, we play Argument Architect with introductory English classes, where students are generally learning the ropes of the research paper through at least one minor and scaffolded research assignment. So here you can see our physical version of the board game. Students are broken into small groups and given a shared topic, a set of cards representing individual sources with a short quote from the source and its citation, as well as a set of blank source cards and a blank card for their thesis or claim. In round one, each group chooses at least 3 source cards that fit together to make an argument, and then write a thesis statement or claim that communicates that argument. Librarians and instructors visit each group to inspect the argument, and we call ourselves building inspectors when we do. And we look for issues with credibility and relevancy, and then successful groups receive a prize from our library prize box, and they move to round 2. In round 2, groups are asked to evaluate the argument that they just created, and then add in blank source cards to indicate areas where they need more evidence or support, and they label those cards in their own way to indicate what they would need to make their argument stronger and what kind of a source it would be. We made some early decisions about how this game would be structured to help make it successful for a wide variety of students and courses. It uses a simple and nearly universal skyscraper metaphor, which helps students grasp the idea of building an argument with sources as materials, even if they've never written a research paper before. We stuck with a game also that emphasizes collaboration and constructive goals rather than competition and destructive goals, to emphasize both the importance of sharing ideas in research and working together, and also that the winning condition is to build an argument well, not first or quickly. Because the game is really simple to play, it's also easy to adapt to a variety of environments, both pedagogically and physically, and can be easily customized to fit a course's content. And this is something that's really important for Brett and myself, as the standard kind of for librarians at our school, we don't usually teach full course length instruction. We're normally doing one-shot sessions. So we sometimes have never been in that room before when we come in to teach. So it's got to work no matter where we are. And I'll hand it over to Brett. Brett, you're muted, sorry.
Thanks there, Elizabeth. Hello, everybody. So I'll pick up on the next slide. Since introducing Argument Architect, we've observed some informal effects on student learning and understanding. We found that in our post-game debriefings, students can easily identify and discuss the core skills within the game. Our student construction crews are generally engaged in the gameplay and can explain for us how it simulates the process of writing a research paper. We haven't yet done a formal assessment because we've only recently gotten the game to what we're thinking of as its final form. But in the future, we're hoping to do some pre and post testing of research skills or pre and post assessment of research related grades. Informally though, we've been continually updating the game based on feedback and observation from our test classes. Overall, we found that our students see value in the game's inclusion in their class and are excited to try it out. And our instructors have given us repeat business each semester.
5 minutes remaining.
Excellent, right at the slide break there. So in the next slide, I'll address a question I think is coming up a lot today. You're probably thinking, okay, Brett and Elizabeth, how will you play a board game in the fall in an online teaching environment? Well, we've got some answers. We've been working on a digital version of the board game that would still have that same high touch impact as our physical game, but in a safer, socially distanced environment. During this summer, we've searched the web for a platform to host our game, looking for a platform that has these 3 characteristics that you see there on the slide. A platform that would still be intuitive and flexible. Just like in a physical space, it would allow students to manipulate images and stack tiles into an argument tower. Secondly, we look for a platform that would be accessible by a variety of devices, not only computers, but also phones and tablets, which many students actually are using for their remote learning. And third, of course, we wanted a platform that would not have barriers like requiring students to create an account. So we spent a long time scouring the web, and we looked at Google Drawing and Google Jamboard as possible board game platforms. But as of now, we're planning to move forward with Padlet as the best intuitive and free to students option. We include a bit.ly link to our Padlet draft board game there on the slide. We explored, as I mentioned, a number of other gaming platforms along the way. And as a bonus, did you know you'd get a bonus in this session? As a bonus, we compiled a list of all the game board platforms we looked at along with our notes on each. You could use those if you want to host your own digital game creations. That bonus list is there in the Google folder. That list also includes some links to sample games that other librarians have created with those particular platforms there. So you'll find that in the Google folder. And then on our next slide, as I've said before, this is a project we're very excited about, and we'd love it if you'd like to learn more about it. We appreciate any feedback you have about it. You can visit our Google folder to download this presentation, our bonus handouts, and you can also get the director's cut there in the Google folder. By director's cut, I mean a full-length article that we wrote recently for an open access journal. That'll include all the details we left out in our lightning talk today. Overall, we feel Argument Architect is an adaptable activity that can be implemented and modified for most information literacy classrooms. And we have templates of the game there in the Google folder. You're welcome to take those, revamp those in any way you want, and use those for any environment that you'd like to. Finally, on our last slide, we encourage you to reach out to us if you have questions, want to use our materials, have any kind of feedback, or if you just want to talk about gaming. We love to learn from other librarians out there working on game design instruction. We'd love to see your creations. Our contact info is here on the presentation. And so thank y'all for listening, and see you at the construction site.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for bringing this game to Lily and sharing those templates with us. I think we actually do have time for maybe a question if the moderators would like to pull one up.
Yeah, I think we have time for one.
Thank you. So Susan is asking, what are the limitations of using the game?
Okay, yeah, so I know, I'm trying to think, we've mostly used it at Penn State, what's called English 15, which is like freshman introductory English classes. So one of the limitations is that we haven't really tested it outside of that environment. And we've also been very lucky to have a really collaborative instructor who has given us, I think at this point we're using 3 sessions from Tara's class to do this game. And that's a little bit unprecedented for us. So it definitely has a time limit. I've played the game with English 5 classes, which are like very introductory English classes, I think usually aimed at international students. And those I've done in like 20 minutes. We've only played one very short round of the game, and it doesn't do the same thing. You really need that like 30 to 45 minute chunk for them to be able to do multiple things. And if you can give them, we talked about 2 rounds, there's an optional 3rd round where you can give students a wild card and let them do whatever they want. And for one of those, we had a group that created a double tower showing the pro and con sides of the same argument. So they do some really cool things if you can give them the time. But for librarians who typically work with one-shots, time is always the problem. And the previous limitation would have been the physical nature of the game, that if you have someone with, although I have played it before with students who had accessibility issues. I've played with students with hearing disabilities and vision disabilities or accessibility things with that. And we've been able to find workarounds because they work in groups where, you know, the things that some people are not going to have as easy of a time with, other members of the group can pick those up. And students have usually been really adaptable for that. I don't know, Brett, do you have any limitations you want to add in?
One limitation I'd like to mention, this game, Argument Architect, as Elizabeth mentioned, we use it in English composition classes. I don't think it can substitute for a instruction session on the databases. The board game kind of teaches, its outcomes are kind of, it's teaching you argument mechanics, how to build an argument and how to select credible sources for those arguments there. It's good to have an additional session on how to use the databases to actually find the sources there too. So we're actually developing a complement game to this one. It's a tongue twister. So I'll see if I can say it. Evidence excavator. Evidence excavator. And this one has students dig and mine sources for information that they would later construct into the towers that you saw on the slides here there. So continuing with that construction theme there. Can you see my there? So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth and Brett. We will have a couple minutes break and our next presenter will start in about 3 minutes. After that, some announcements from the Lilly board before intermission.
Hello, Claire. Can you see my slides and hear me? Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure that you all can hear me.
Yes.
Great.
Excellent.
Thanks.
And just a reminder to everyone in the chat, we are going to share the entire conference and slides on the Lilly website afterwards. So will be not available immediately, but it will definitely be available too for your reference. All right, folks, our next Lightning Talk presenter is Wei Sen. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Wei Sen, and I'm a librarian at Middlesex Community College in Connecticut. So today I'm going to introduce 5 tools that I used a lot in library instruction. Vyond is an online animation software. It has tons of ready-to-use templates, characters, and prompts. So basically, you don't need a lot of technical skills to create professional videos. So I used Vyond to create videos as prompts for discussion. So here's an example. Oops. Give me a second. I think I need to share the, okay, can I unmute it? Okay, sorry. Okay, so I'm not going to play the entire thing because of time limit. So I created this video based on my conversation with the professor before the instruction. So I included the assignment information, included the professor's name, and that was a great way to build up the personal relationship with the professor and the students. And I only spent like half an hour creating this kind of simple videos, and many conversations can start from there, just more visual. I also used Vyond to create tutorials for virtual library orientation and a flipped classroom. So this is another example.
Hello, I am Paige, your virtual library assistant. In this session, after you log in, you will see your name.
Okay, I just play these 2 parts because first I want to say that I used the Vyond's text-to-speech function. The interesting thing is students really like this kind of computer-generated voice because for them this is a little different and this is fun. And another thing is when I created this part, actually I used Camtasia. So there's another tip that you can always combine several tools to make the best use of them. Mentimeter is very similar to Poll Everywhere and Slido. And I use the Mentimeter to do poll in the class. Students go to menti.com and use the code to participate. And I also use the Mentimeter to do brainstorming activity. For example, for this activity, when students, they enter their responses, a live word cloud will be generated. So it is very cool. Kahoot, I know many of you are very familiar with Kahoot. I just cannot skip it because students love it. And we played Kahoot a lot. So there are 2 modes, teach and assign. So for teach mode, when you are teaching in a classroom or if you are teaching a synchronous online session, you can just ask the students to join at kahoot.it and enter the game pin to play it. So this is a great way for icebreaker, introduce yourself, such as 2 choices and 1 lie about your library, or as a pretest. And I often break candies to cheer students up. So if you want students to take their own pace, you may want to use the assign mode. So you can share the link on social media or on the learning management system. So this is an example I want to share because this is something I created and posted on the college's Facebook for the National Library Week. Yes, that's me. But just to give you a brief overview how it looks like. Yes. So this is about Kahoot, if you never used it. I'm going to leave here. Padlet. I used Padlet for more than 5 years, and I'm so glad to say that at this conference, we were asked to introduce ourselves on a Padlet. So Padlet is one of my favorites. It is a little different than other instant message tools because students can upload videos, pictures, all these kinds of format. So it is more flexible and we can do more things with Padlet. I use the Padlet for entry or exit tickets. For example, I ask the students to list the most important 2 items you learned today. I also use the Padlet to collect ideas. So I want to show you live this one. So this is an activity about identifying primary sources and secondary sources. So students, they can add a post here. They can like each other's post and they can comment on each other's post. Then as a host, I'm able to move things around. So it is very visual when we try to organize things, but just a little tip, if there are a lot of students, a lot of participants, some people complained that it will be a little messy, you need a lot of time to organize it. So fortunately, my classes are around like less than 20 students, so it worked pretty well. I also use the Padlet to ask students to share their findings. So this actually is a test page. This is something I plan to do for this fall. I want students to do a virtual library scavenger hunt, ask them to find an online item using the library's website about college success. So students, they can upload books they found from the catalog, articles, or they can even record a screencast. So we will see if it will work.
5 minutes remaining.
Thanks. Article Storyline is a very powerful tool for creating interactive learning objectives. So you may already use it for creating interactive tutorials, but you may not notice that it is also a great tool for creating games. I'm also a game person. So this is an example. So we say this is false, then submit. So it brings a lot of laughs in the class. And I also posted this kind of link to Blackboard. And when I posted, the students would reply, oh, I helped the monkey. And actually many game templates shared in Articulate community. So if you want to explore. This is another example, choose your own research adventure. So I created this game. I just want students to reflect their research process. So students, they can just hit start and then they can select their character and then continue and then follow all the steps to choose their own research adventure. So it was fun. And I think that's everything from me. So before we move to QA, I want to share this Padlet. So this Padlet, I posted my slides here, so you will be able to explore the examples I posted there. And I also shared some other tools that I explored or I liked. So in case you're also interested in exploring, I also want to encourage you to add your favorite instructional tools to this Padlet, so we can have a place that we can share ideas and explore new tools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do think we have time for a question from the chat.
We have 2 questions. One's from Marianne, asking if Vyond can be integrated into LibGuide.
You mean the Vyond?
Yes.
Yes. So I created a video using Vyond, then downloaded MP4 then I uploaded it to YouTube and then caption it.
Oh, the question is about if it can integrate into LibGuide. So the question will be yes, because you're going to
yes.
YouTube.
If you upload it to the YouTube, you will be able to embed it to the LibGuide.
Thank you. Another question from Denise, which is, did you purchase a Padlet premium plan? If so, which one did you purchase?
Actually, I used the free one. So I was pretty lucky. Like I mentioned, I used it for so many years. So when they moved to the pricing model, they changed. Actually, they allowed me to keep, I think for my free account, I have 26 Padlets. So I was pretty lucky. Now I think under the new pricing mode, you can only do 3. So you have to like delete something, then you can add more.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Questions.
Great. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
We have, let me get ready to share my screen. We have a couple of announcements from, one second, I need to find the window. A couple of announcements from the Lily board before we go to our program intermission. All right, should be ready to share it now. And great. Eva, are you here with me?
I'm right here with you.
Excellent. Always by my side. Eva has been so helpful this year, as has the entire Lily board. And I would like to let her introduce our new board members for next year. We have elections once a year in Lily. This is an entirely, zero budget, volunteer run organization, and many of the terms last for 2 years on the advisory board. It is a great way to get to meet other librarians in other types of institutions and also get some experience with the conference planning process. So with that, I will, oops, I feel like I'm having trouble. Here we go. With that, I'll give it to Eva. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. It's been really wonderful to be part of the Lily board and also serve as your Lily co-chair and work directly with Claire, who's been an amazing chair. As you can imagine, a lot of planning and love has gone into this conference, which was initially going to be in person, but this has been a really great opportunity to connect with people nationally and internationally. I think that's the first time that we've ever done this via this platform. So thank you for working with us and your patience as we explore this new area. So with that, I would like to just welcome some of the new entering board members and governance for Lily moving forward. So I will be serving as your incoming chair. And I would like to welcome Liz Cheney as our incoming vice chair, chair-elect. And also Carolyn Tanai-Goodell, who will be our secretary. And our board, who also provides some of the greatest wisdom that we can have from all sectors of librarianship, which is really the spirit of Lily, to bring together all the different areas of librarianship that we encompass. So I'd like to welcome Aisha Connor Gayton, who's going to be representing the community colleges.
Who I believe is here today.
Yes, who's here and who's been participating actively throughout today. So thank you. And I'd also like to welcome Yesenia Villar, coming from the public library sector, and a couple of new folks also, Sally Romero, El Shaima Sakar, and a continuing member, Marcia Henry, who will be representing university libraries. And also thank Jennifer Silverman, who is now transitioning from secretary to an advisory board member representing special libraries. I also want to say thank you to our exiting representative, who is a student representative, Diego, and I would also like to welcome our new representative, Marianne Ekujewu. And so with that, thank you so much for participating in elections. And please, if we could just take a moment to show some reactions. I see some love happening in the chat, but I'll go ahead and just do a clap and just welcome all of you
Welcome.
to this
Welcome
space.
and thank you. And also thank you so much to, this is not the whole board that was on this year, but thank you so much as well to like for the guidance of past President Mary McMillan and Esther Gracian, and thank you so much. Also, we want to especially acknowledge our web committee, because this year has been a little different with Lily. It's again our first virtual conference, so these folks have done a lot of hard work and diligent planning and thinking about troubleshooting options to make today run smoothly. Thank you so much. There was something I was going to say before intermission, but it will come to me. Let's see. Okay, we're going to take a break now. It's a good time to maybe eat if you'd like. And also, please view our virtual posters. When we come back from this intermission, the first thing we'll do is have an opportunity for Q&A sessions in smaller breakout rooms with each of the poster presenters. So please check out the posters. Please also give us conference feedback. There's going to be, this form will also be linked at the end, but this is a chance to help us build an even better conference next year, as well as help us decide what we want to expand going forward with the Lilly listserv. These groups that we've thrown up the logos here, we are not officially affiliated or endorsing, but we want to highlight some of the groups that are doing important work right now. And so these are Library World as well as People of Color. These are some good organizations to check out, among many others. Eva, am I forgetting anything before break? I don't think so.
I think that's it. I think I could also speak on some of these. So these are some organizations and collectives that you can actively donate to if you want. So we just wanted to share and amplify that possibility if you're able to. And that's it. Enjoy your break.
Thanks very much. Yeah. And these are not live links, but please check them out. We'll put them in the chat again. All right, welcome back. Vice Chair and Chair-elect Eva will introduce our next activity. Let me go ahead and get the slide.
Thanks, Claire. So this is going to be the part, well, firstly, welcome back. Welcome back. I hope you had a nice break. We're going to get a little movement going and rotation in our next portion of today's LilyCon 2020. So we're going to welcome in the poster discussions, which are going to be done in the form of breakout rooms. So what will happen is you will be invited to go to a breakout room, and presenters will be rotated through those rooms, and you'll have about approximately 6 minutes to be there within each rotation. And at 1:15, we're all going to come back together to the main room and resume our session. So you have ample time to ask Q&A in there in those rooms. Just remember the poster presenters will be there, and hopefully you enjoy this portion of today's conference.
I just remembered that we should note this part will not actually be included in the recording. Sorry about that, but it's because of the breakout rooms function in Zoom. But this is kind of the live face-to-face discussion part, and then the recording will resume after. Once we go into rooms, you'll get an invitation to join, and go ahead and unmute yourself and feel free to chat and introduce yourself a little bit. The presenters will talk. We're just making sure that all of our presenters will have access to the rooms and that we're ready to go. Sorry about that. So just want to take this moment to thank everybody who submitted proposals, because and thank you for your patience with our process this year, because it was kind of crazy and different. We definitely appreciate everyone sharing their expertise and ideas to make this possible.